I'm here with our in-house sommelier, Kyri. Welcome back.
Hello everyone.
Nice to be with you again. We look far and wide for really interesting champagnes to include in the club, and they always have something to teach you. And this month is certainly no exception to that. We have a very interesting theme, and the theme is aging of the champagne sur Pointe versus sur Latte. Kyri,
which is basically,
what does that mean?
So sur Pointe is on point, literally
on its nose.
Completely on its nose. And then sur Latte is actually laying as flat as possible, which is the most efficient way of laying wines down in the cellar.
And why
we're going to look at the two differences between how they do that and why they do that.
So let's get into it. Why do they do it?
Okay. So
it's rare to see a wine aged from the beginning to the end sur Pointe. Extremely rare.
And that's one of the first wines we're going to look at today. They do that exactly, and then look at why they do that. Ployez-Jacquemart. And then there's some other amazing houses, including the second house we're going to look at, but many other bigger houses, the most expensive brands that you may know, that also use sur Pointe
for the finishing of their
wines.
All right, so let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Sur Latte. Most champagnes, when they're aging down in the cellar, they've got the yeast inside the bottle. The yeast has been added to trigger the second fermentation that creates the bubbles. While those champagnes are in the winemaker's cellar, they have the yeast contained within the bottle. The yeast is breaking down over time, going through a process called autolysis. It's interacting with the wine itself, and the longer the wine spends aging with the yeast inside the bottle, the more complexity we're going to get, the finer bead we're going to get, the acidity's coming down, and that yeast it's essentially breaking down inside the bottle.
Absolutely. And there's two things that happen. Exactly as you describe it, autolysis happens, but also further complexity ranges into the wine. Now, if you do that for too long, you can sort of overpower some of that freshness that the wine has. So one of the things that they do is once they start to get the sediment or the lees to come into the neck, they lift the bottle up, which is part of disgorgement. Okay, that's the process a little bit later down the track. So once it sits up on the neck, all the yeast lees sit in the neck, and it's going to take a much longer time for the yeast lees to impart any sort of creaminess or richness into the wine, but it maintains freshness. That's the most important part.
So sur Pointe, we have the bottle fully on its nose. All the yeast is not spread out evenly through the bottle, it's contained
less
just
surface
in the
area.
neck. So we've got less oxygen ingress potentially, but certainly less contact throughout the wine of that yeast. So we're getting freshness but aging at the same time.
You got it. So the first house we're looking at this month, which is destined for all of you lovers, is the house of Ployez-Jacquemart, which are based in a little town called Ludes in the Montage de Reims. So if you're looking at it, it's this sort of the sea, the backwards sea that goes across Champagne. This family began in 1930, and it was actually set up by Marcel and his wife Yvonne. Marcel was an architect, and I believe they have a very beautiful property at where the winery is. And the now winemaker is Reimns Ployez.
The granddaughter of the founder.
So it's third generation only.
Female chef de carte, which I love. But she's very particular about the way that she makes the wine. She's attention to detail, mainly Grand Cru, Premier Cru. She's got only a tiny parcel of ownership, so just over 2 hectares of ownership, but she's got long-standing contracts with others in Premier Cru, Grand Cru region.
And this goes sort of back 30
years.
Yeah, so they've got a real understanding of where the fruit's coming from.
And she's in the Montage de Reims, and mainly Pinot Noir, Chardonnay?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So most of what she has is Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, and then she buys in the Chardonnay component from the Côte de Blanc. And what you really see, I think, in their wines is a beautiful precision of the fruit and the aging coming through.
And I love that with the non-vintage, she tends to reflect the year and not that consistency that some houses strive for. So she's really presenting the best version she can get from a vintage every year. And the first cuvee that is coming to all of our club members this month is our cracker. It's called the Extra Quality Brut, which I think is a slightly bizarre name. But
Extra Quality Brut. What
but
is
it's
that?
good. It's
I was
good.
actually had to look that up. It didn't make any sense to me. I think it's a
surely
derivation
subjective.
or derived from Extra Brut. Thanks, Tango. Cheers, mate.
Sorry.
It's derived from extra root, meaning drier, and the quality, well, just didn't escape. So clearly it's in the bottle.
Look, it's a good wine, isn't it? I have to say, not only do we think it's a fantastic wine, when we did our homework on this wine, every serious critic in the world at some point has given this a fantastic review, a really good score. It is 60% red fruits,
yes.
So Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. We have 40% Chardonnay, and of course the wine-aged Pointe.
And so I'm going to do a little demonstration for you guys at home so you understand what the hell we're talking about. Pointe. When the bottle goes into aging, it literally sits like this, and there's hundreds of them, and they're usually stacked up against the wall.
Not very efficient, is it?
It's not, but you know, when you run a small estate and you're looking at quality, you don't mind doing these things because it actually makes to produce a much better wine. So the yeast leaves get captured in the bottom of the neck, the wine sits up here, and there's no real much contact at all. So what you're doing is, whilst you're having that aging potential, and it sits, I think, 4.5 years in the cellar, which is pretty good for a non-vintage, right? You get this beautiful fine bead, which you can see in the glass, and you maintain the freshness, which is what you want. And that's what we're looking for.
In terms of tasting note for me, I mean, instantly you get this quite developed baked bread, sort of brioche character, but you also have this really crunchy fruit.
Yeah.
You know, apple, pear, and also some warmer tones in there as well, some warmer yellow fruits.
Yeah, I think my tasting notes read like citrus and hazelnuts. You know, those are sort of like really clean yellow citrus fruit, but some more complex roasted sort of hazelnut, and that's that sort of combination.
Plenty of length, plenty of character. Cannot fault this cuvee. The second maison that we're featuring that's coming out to all of our connoisseurs is the Maison Palmer & Co. And we like this house, don't we?
Kyla, I think you're doing them an injustice. These guys, they're so unassuming, and they are, you know, I always describe them as sort of like the best house you never heard of, because they have such attention to detail, such savoir-faire with everything that they do.
Every time we go to Champagne and we take people to the Maison, they're blown
we visit
away.
their cellars, they see, so they're famous for large formats. That's one of the things they do really, really well, and they actually ferment in these large formats, which is another topic another time. But what they do, long aging, and they really, really understand their vineyards. So their growers are brilliant.
Started in 1947, 7 growers originally, named after a biscuit company because they couldn't get an acronym of the names of the 7 founders to work. So they're like, bugger it, we'll just name it after a biscuit company from England.
And it was the most famous or most well-known biscuit with the Reimois, or the people of Reims, at the time of the war, and it was imported from the UK.
And easy to pronounce
it's
for
actually,
a global market.
Was it Huntley and Palmer biscuits, and they used
like
Palmer and company.
So Palmer & Co, you can say we're very fond of. We think the wines are outstanding. Another long aging house. So not only are they aging so large, but again, we've seen many times in the cellar, but when they're completing or they feel like the wine has had enough aging, they move to the Pointe, as we mentioned previously. Which
we'll add into the fold with images and things like that, but you can see what they do, especially for magnums, larger formats, but also for the standard 750ml bottles as well.
And the second cuvee coming out to all our connoisseurs is the Blanc de Blanc from the Maison Palmer & Co. Super, I love this wine. So let's talk about So Blanc de Blanc, as you know, is all Chardonnay, but Chardonnay is not Chardonnay. She's a chameleon. She can have different characteristics depending on where in the world she's grown. And even within the Champagne region, we have sub-terroirs.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the Montagne de Reims, we've got the Côte de Blanc, which is known for these really precise mineral, chalky types of Chardonnay. We've got the south of Champagne, which is a little bit broader, a little bit warmer. We've got the Cézanne, we've got, you know, down in the Côte de Bar. To think about that for a moment. Let's talk about what's in the glass. Come on, tell me some of the parts of Kyri. Get nerdy on me.
So Montagne de Reims, right, is, we were talking about it from a Pinot Noir with the first wine, okay?
Yeah.
Now there's also Chardonnay plots in this area as well. And
Even though it's famous for Pinot Noir.
Correct. So Villas Marmarie, which is another one of our favorite producers here in this spot. And one of my favorite areas for Chardonnay is Trepaille.
Yeah.
Now, some other really amazing houses use it as part of their blend because it has a sort of a rusticity to it.
So let's talk about how this feels on the palate. So Chardonnay, a Blanc de Blanc, from the parcels that have been utilised in the Parma and Co, are broader on the palate. They're a little bit rounder, they're a bit more supple. Instead of this quite linear, direct, acidic, taut, tight string acidity that you see from the Côte de Blanc.
It's exactly the difference between that, and we are looking at broader, richer, I think
rounder, supple.
If you like the old school styles of Aussie Chardonnay, basically, you'll like this.
Yeah.
Compared to the new wave Chablis, you know, lean, crisp, mineral. And that's what we love about these styles because they age beautifully and it's so good with food.
And now how many years have we got aging on lees? We're already sort of 4.5 years.
4.5 years. They do a post-disgorgement aging of 6 months before they release to market, which is, you know, smart. Not everyone can afford to do that.
Yeah.
And they only have about 6 or 7 years, 6 or 7 grams, of dosage. This one, by the way, in Magnum format, the International Wine Championships, IWSC, took out the winner.
The best wine.
Le top.
In Magnum.
And we love it.
There are so many techniques that the winemakers have available to them in Champagne to give them their own personality and to give their wines their own style. And that is the whole point of the club, is that we guide you through this variation of all of these wonderful maisons. And here today, we're looking at the idea of aging sur Pointe.
Yes.
From its beginning, its inception, which is highly unusual. It's very difficult to do, aging the bottles on point.
Ployez-Jacquemart, absolutely.
Versus a Sur-La aging, which is more traditional on its side. Each of the winemakers in Champagne bringing their own thought, ideas, knowledge, sometimes taking from their ancestors, sometimes taking from vintage in other countries, but always experimenting to improve the process of creating Champagne.
And then you at home are armed with that knowledge. You know more about the Champagne and you actually have a deeper and greater appreciation of it, which is the whole reason why we started this club in the first place.
We hope you enjoy the wines this month and we can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
See ya. Look at the color of this, it's so dark and handsome.
A bit like you, darling.
Thank you. I wasn't fishing like this for a compliment, but I take it.
3, 2, 1.
I was expecting
Oh, you was gonna start.
All right. I'll do it, mate. I'll do it.
I'll do it. And fine mousse, but with real grunt, crunch and beautiful defined fruit. You thought that was shit, didn't you? Let's just carry on.
Was it written all over my face?
Come on, let's focus. Who's starting, you or me? I need to get into it. Come on.
You're the one that needs to focus,
All right,
buddy.
we'll start.
ADHD kid.
2, 1.
Second maison that's coming out to all of our connoisseurs is the Maison Parma & Co, which for me is, oh God, I have to put Tango down.
No, don't put him down, we just got him.
It's driving me crazy. Can you take Tango into another room or out the front for a bit, just because he's scratching around and we're not going to get this finished.
Shape up. Quick up.
Alrighty, so Kyla, it's your go. I'm going to count you back in.
Kyriakos, it is Côte de Cézanne.
I will work this shit out.
You work it out. Work it out real fucking fast because we're counting in. All right, let's go.
I was in a rush.
I'm always in a rush, that's right.
Oh, God. Slow your shit down.
Whoa.
Might
You want a bucket?
Might end up enjoying life. Who knows?
I'll enjoy life later. No, I'm fucking rich.
Or dead.
Ooh, that's a big boy.
This is also part of the tasting note.
Big boy?